Welcome back to the Same Room Only podcast. It's episode 75, 76,
We're
77.
at
I don't know.
75.
75. I don't know. We're losing track. Time just is passing way too fast. But as always, if you guys do enjoy the podcast, make sure you download it. Best way to show support. Pretty much the only way we could track it at the moment. Make sure to follow us on social media. You can follow our account at SROnlyPod on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow our personal pages. Mine is at the Healy6.
And I'm iGoose. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Make sure you hit that download button, as Healy said. Stay interactive, as always.
This week, we just had a weekend of playoff basketball. Super excited to talk about that. So we are going to knock out some baseball beforehand. Not a lot of baseball talk. End of last episode, we were literally in the 8th inning of Corey Kluber's no-hitter. And of course, we said, yeah, we'll just cut the episode here so we can continue the weekly tradition of talking about no-hitters. Corey Kluber, he no-hit the Texas Rangers, who are now tied for the league lead in getting no-hit twice. 3 teams have combined for 6 no-hitters, 2 apiece. Everyone last week's talking about the frequency of no-hitters. I think 7 is the most in a season. We are currently at 6. Is it a pitching problem? Are these new baseballs a problem? I am still on the end of this might be an overreaction. I get that pitchers are pitching way better. There's substances being involved. They've been involved for a long time. Averages have dropped quite a bit this year. But at the same time, when 3 of probably like the worst teams in baseball get no hit multiple times, it's kind of tough. I would need to see like the Dodgers or someone get no hit by one of these guys before I could be like, all right, let's change the baseball. Let's go right back to where we were.
Yeah, especially when you look at like Texas, for instance. That's a team where they are notorious for having a super low batting average. Many of those players, even though they can hit 25 home runs in the season, but they just don't hit the ball often. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say. I mean, I personally like the fact that there are this many pitching gems, if you will, not just the no-hitters. There's been so many pitching gems in general. But you know, it's hard to say because there are teams out there who are hitting the crap out of the ball. I mean, they're literally unloading, especially some guys that we're going to talk about later on, that are starting to unload, and different teams that are just coming together as a whole, where they are actually doing damage to some of these pitchers that they're seeing. But for the most part, it is a pitcher's game right now. What adjustments will be made, we don't know. But yeah, so we saw the no-hitter from Corey Kluber, and then in the news today, maybe late yesterday, he is out for up to 2 months, potentially maybe more, with a shoulder injury. So that is bad news on top of what was excellent news. Corey Kluber, obviously, the past few years has been a very dominant pitcher. The Yankees get their guy. They get their guy. This is going to be the guy to put him over the top. They've already had Garrett Cole, and he gets hurt. And that's the story of the Yankees. You know, between their bats, Gary Sanchez, he gets hurt historically. Stanton's been hurt. Aaron Judge has been hurt. You got the pitchers getting hurt.
Luke Voigt's now out for like a couple months or
I
a
just
few
saw
weeks
that.
at least.
And he's good too. He's a great bat. So maybe there's a curse, maybe not. I don't know. That East is tough too, because Boston is balling out. Rafael Devers just hit his 14th home run this year.
The
Early in the
Rays.
season, the Rays are good. I mean, baseball is fun right now. Baseball, it's so competitive in almost every division, and yeah, that's tough for the Yankees. Yankees, I still think will be okay. I think the Yankees down the stretch are made for the longevity of the season. I think they're going to be good in the playoffs. But if they're not, well, the White Sox will be getting healthier. Let's put it that way. Besides, Michael Kopech left with a hamstring injury earlier.
Mm-hmm. Today in news as well, Giovanni Gallegos got his hat removed mid-game as soon as he got brought in. I think it was umpire Joe West took the hat away. I guess he saw some foreign substance on it, and we don't know for sure. It left. They're testing it, but we'll have to see what happens with that. As we just talked about with the no-hitters, guys have been using stuff for quite a while. They get all the advantages that they can get. Some make it more obvious than others. Like John Means, who threw a no-hitter, there's like video of him sticking his fingers in the glove, and then you just see his fingers stick as he like pulls it apart from the glove. And like, it's nothing new. So wonder when they will actually break this down and like implement a very good system of what is not like available to use, or actually suspend guys for a very long time if they actually get caught with this. So if you do get caught, you don't get suspended for that long anyways. And it's pretty easy to like hide it at the moment.
Advocating for steroids or for PEDs whatsoever, but isn't this technically performance enhancing? It's not a performance enhancing drug, but it's performance enhancing. It's against the nature of the human, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now we are. I'll let you get to your point. I'm sorry.
No, that's my point. Yeah.
Oh, right now, like we're seeing all these great pitching performances. It's all fine. Nobody's really complaining. But this could end up as a situation where 20 years down the line, you have all these kids saying, well, Garrett Cole pitched during the Pine Tar era. Like, who really knows? A bunch of people were using it. Jacob deGrom won 3 Cy Youngs. He ended up winning like 6. He was one of the best pitchers of all time. But, he used the pine tar. He used the foreign substances. Just end this era of baseball. Don't even bother including them. The narrative will probably, if this does end up getting like super crackdown, the narrative of this era will change in so many years. Because it's funny how the steroid era, everyone was perfectly fine. And all of a sudden, 20 years down the road, in the constant pushing of the narrative, led to everyone, like all these kids and just like boomers, to be like, all right, that era blackballed from the Hall of Fame, no matter what. Because they tampered.
Who cares that Barry Bonds was one of the most dominant players of all time? Who cares that he took so many walks at the plate and literally changed how pitchers prep for a game? Part of the steroid era. He used steroids. His head got bigger. His helmet got bigger. He used steroids. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's like you said, it's all about a narrative. It's all about a narrative with sports.
And like with Hank Aaron and Mickey Mantle and like Bob Gibson, they all took greenies. Like that was technically a performance enhancing drug. They came out with it too. Like Willie Mays is probably on that too. But those guys are clean. It's not steroids. It's not anabolic steroids.
What about the people who are prescribed Adderall, such as the quarterback, who is that? Josh Freeman in the NFL got in trouble for that.
Chris Davis.
Like, whoa. Oh, Chris Davis as well. Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
That was when he was doing very well. He was taking Adderall because he was actually prescribed it. They took it away, and he has been very bad over the past few years.
He can't focus. Wow. Well, would not be surprised. That's crazy. I actually did not see that happened. So it was before he even started pitching, which okay. And the fact that they argued it, I wonder why they argued it. It's like, hey, don't you have a backup hat anyways, just in case? I don't know. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. And like you said, the whole thing with John Means, but I feel like this has been a thing for so long. I mean, I feel like you see it in movies. I feel like this is something you see in movies. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like if they crack down, they crack down, but at the moment it's not really like a big issue. So it's just going to continue to happen with pitchers, and we'll just have to wait and see. So we'll talk about that in the future if it's addressed by Major League Baseball. One more thing, the Cubs are hot. Don't let them get hot. They are currently on an 11-game streak of their bullpen having a scoreless outing, which is awesome. But the bullpen used to be the problem for the Cubs the past few years. What's their biggest problem? The bullpen. They just, once you get the starters out, the bullpen just allows runs. It's not great. And they have all these homegrown guys that have come up and are just pitching lights out. Love to see it. Now the Cubs just need a couple good starters. It'd be really cool if they had a Cy Young candidate on their team. Unfortunately, he's pitching in San Diego. But besides that, this team is set up. They need to either re-sign the core 4 or the core 3 at the moment and get some starter help, or they're just going to blow up the team, which I hope it's retool and re-sign some of these guys.
It'd be nice to resign. I mean, Chris Bryant is having, we talked about it. The expectation was Chris Bryant's going to get hot this year. He's on this is his contract year, I believe. And it's going to be a big decision for the Cubs. Obviously, they got rid of their pitching. Lester had to go. Obviously, he's getting older. Yu Darvish, I still felt like was one of the best we've seen in the last couple of years. They let him go. So, like you mentioned, the starters go downhill. Their bats are coming around, but now you got to make a decision. Like, okay, the bats are good, the bullpen is good. We're in a race for the pennant. Well, do we end up trading Chris Bryant for maybe we somehow get an ace in return? Maybe there's a team who can afford, or a young prospect or something. But I mean, if you trade Chris Bryant, you're basically, I feel like, giving up on the season, because I don't think you're going to get a player that's right now ready to make a push to the playoffs in exchange, or maybe they do. Maybe they get lucky somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I think right now you got to keep them. You got to keep them through. You gotta prove that. You gotta talk to these guys and say, hey, look, we did this with our team without really a good starting staff. Let's look forward to next season. Let's go grab whoever. Mm-hmm. I don't even know who's a free agent this year. I mean, there's so many pitchers in the league. Who's to say they don't grab another good stud? Look at the White Sox. They have so many good studs on the team now that they were able to trade for or pick up in free agency. The Cubs are literally just a couple of moves away now. And from being back to this, I don't want to compare it to the 2016 team, but back to making another playoff run.
Yeah. I wonder if, as we get closer to the trade deadline, let's say they're like still around this 500, but they're still like at the top of the division. There's a lot of time left still after the trade deadline. And I don't know how logically this works, especially for a player that's been around for a long time. But if if extension talks don't really go their way and they're going to take it into free agency, I wonder if the Cubs will be like, hey, Chris, like pull him into the office, be like, yeah, we are going to trade you. Like, this is no harm on you. We really want you to come back. Right now, I don't think this year the team is good enough. We'll trade you away for a bunch of prospects or like a good value, and we'll continue talks into the off season. And hopefully you give us a fair opportunity, because they're going to have to go into free agency regardless. And maybe they sign them back in the off season. Rarely is that the case, though. Normally when you see guys get traded, it's kind of like, all right, we're done with you. You're done with us. Like, this isn't happening. Like, we did see Aroldis Chapman, though. He did get traded to the Cubs. He ended up in free agency, and then he signed right back with the Yankees. Yeah, what happened with like KB or all those guys?
I mean, KB, Rizzo, that World Series team, they have to have like a spot in their heart for Chicago always. I feel like when you win a World Series, especially one like that with the Cubs, you never know. I mean, it's very well possible. There's so many different scenarios going into it. Or maybe they just don't. Maybe they test it and they're like, look, we're going to offer you this. We're not going to trade you. We want to make an offer, or we want to make a run. We actually think we can make a run to the playoffs this year. You're a key asset. We want to keep you beyond this year, but we'll talk about that in the offseason, which obviously may end up backfiring. That could definitely very well backfire, and they get nothing in return. So from a business standpoint, it's almost like you got to trade them.
Yeah, I don't want them to lose these valuable guys for nothing. I don't. It's just, you cannot just give up the bag that easily. I'm trying to think of a team that recently did that. I guess the Giants, they did that with Bumgarner. They let him walk. I get Bumgarner's not the pitcher he once was, but at the time, the Giants were like in a wild card spot / first base or first place, and they ended up holding on to Bumgarner for whatever reason when they could have got at least just a return on him.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where what if you put him on the block? You put him on the block.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like any of the offers, but he knows he's on the block now. He knows the Cubs are done. And obviously you have to, I mean, as a player, you're going to play your game regardless, but like your morale drops. Like that's a real thing. So then it's like, okay, Chris Bryant is in the news. July 30th, I think, is like the deadline. July 30th comes around. Cubs are actively seeking a deal for Chris Bryant. They don't get the deal. They don't get a deal done. Well, Chris Bryant's going into this like, well, I'm definitely not coming back, considering they wanted to trade me anyways. But money talks at the end of the day too. Maybe they talk and discuss it, and they're like, look, business is business. You're a stud. We have a potential, a good future. I mean, they're gonna have to pitch that to him. Because at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, guys want the contract, but guys want stability. They want security. They want to know that they can contend. They can be a part of a contender. It's why a lot of these guys, they get signed big money, but they also go to the Yankees because the Yankees always promise a future for these guys.
Exactly. And with this core team as well, and knowing how stacked free agency is, like you just gotta get rid of them if that's the case. In my mind, gotta get some value, because if the talks don't go well, you lose them. There's at least some other options. We got guys like Freddie Freeman hitting the market. You got Marcus Semien. You also have guys like Corey Seager, Trevor Story, Carlos Correa hitting the market. There's just a bunch of guys.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so many shortstops or like corner guys. Got Mark Canha, not necessarily a big name, but he's just someone that I saw on here. And like, I don't know, it's tough. I'm not looking forward to this like July. July is going to be a very tough month as a Cubs fan, no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, especially considering the fact that they are in contention right now. They're playing good baseball. Having a great bullpen helps when your starters suck. It helps a lot. You got, I mean, who knows? Arrieta's not doing too bad. Not as bad as I thought he was going to. It's something about him in the Cubby blue. Hendricks, obviously, is Hendricks. You never know what you're going to get from him these days. Some of these other starters, I think Trevor Williams is there. I don't know what's going on there. But, I mean, even if they can trade somebody, and bring in a starter and tell Chris Bryant, we're not trading you, buddy. We're making a run. And prove to him that you are loyal to him. Who's to say he doesn't make a deal with you in the offseason? He's probably going to want a huge contract. He's a one-time MVP. He's almost at a Super Bowl. He's a World Series champ. He's, I would say, well-established in the league. Everybody knows who he is. Pitchers know who he is. He's going to get a good penny. And I think that they have to work on that rapport throughout the season. I don't know how the relationship is with David Ross and his team. I assume it's good because he played with these guys, and he's won a few times already. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm eager to know what is going to happen to Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant is a good baseball player.
Yeah, he's my favorite one. And with the three guys, like, I have 2 signed jerseys behind me. I don't want those to go to waste. The Baez and Rizzo jersey right behind me. Like, I don't want those guys to leave, and all of a sudden I'm just sitting here with a couple signed jerseys of guys on other teams. They'll always be special, though, due to them winning the World Series, but it's okay.
Yep.
Man, talked way more baseball than I thought we were today. That's perfectly fine. I love baseball. NBA
time.
Playoff talk time.
Here we go.
We had a full weekend. Playoff basketball. We've seen a few great games. The first couple nights of those games were some of the best basketball I've seen like in a while, especially for
Yeah.
playoff basketball. Normally you get like a bunch of blowouts because the seeding's just okay. But this year, it is wild. And also, we didn't get to talk about it last week, but after the podcast, the following day, Steph Curry and the Warriors ended up losing to the Grizzlies. Steph did all he could to try to carry the Warriors team into the playoffs. Their best shot was against the Lakers because I don't know if you know, but last week, the final like regular season game of the year, it was Grizzlies Warriors. And Steph Curry went off. And I was afraid because when you get a team that plays like it was kind of like a close game. When you get two teams that are close that play each other back to back, it's tough to sweep both games, especially when there's stuff on the line, both intense. So that playing them in the same week, I also did not. I'm not gonna say I'm not surprised, but like the one guy who matched Steph Curry on his performance was Ja Morant. Ja Morant went off.
Ja Morant had a very good game. Towards down the stretch, Ja Morant had a nice little floater, I believe, over Steph Curry in the lane or over somebody that kind of sealed the deal. But Grayson Allen, who was once a college star, hit 2 or 3 threes, clutch threes. One was followed up by, I believe, Tillman, who's one of the bigger guys on the team. He hit one in the corner. And it was at that point where they start hitting and hitting and hitting. And Steph Curry, I mean, it was literally a battle. It was punch for punch, blow for blow. It was definitely a fun game to watch. I hated seeing Steph Curry lose because of the game he had against the Lakers. LeBron hitting that 3 in his face the same way Curry's done to everybody in the league for the last 12 years, 10 years. And that was heartbreaking because he's been balling out without his unit, without Klay Thompson. Durant's gone. Draymond Green is stepping up. Wiseman's out. The rookie sensation's out. And you root for the underdog. And normally Steph Curry's has not been an underdog in so long. And you're like, they're wearing the We Believe jerseys. So the Lakers game, I was upset that they lost. Realistically, the Lakers are the better team. Against Memphis, Ja Morant had probably the best game I've seen him play in his NBA career. I mean, the dude was just balling out. He had a great game. So it did suck to see. It was, horrible to see Golden State go down. But at the end of the day, for playoff basketball, it's probably more fun as a basketball fan, considering who's going to actually offer up more entertainment, more of a series against these teams. Because we saw Memphis took game 1 against Utah already.
Without Donovan Mitchell.
Without Donovan Mitchell, this is true, who was very upset that he had to sit. But I just don't think Golden State would be able to run a 7-game series with any of these teams in the West. They would make it close. They're very competitive. Steph Curry is able to score 40 points a night if he had to. At the end of the day, I think he's one of the ones who can do it. But it just had to happen the way it did because realistically, even Memphis, I still think Memphis isn't that great of a franchise. I still think they're missing another player. I just think that they are a better built team for a 7-game series than Golden State.
Yeah, so. Especially defensively and whatnot. Like, man, watching 2 games of Curry go off while being double teamed was sick. But at the same time, Curry's getting double teamed because Draymond Green can't do anything offensively. He had that shot to win at the end of regulation. He decided to go for the layup. I thought he was just going to pull up from that mid-range and try to sink it. I thought that was going to be his best chance because I don't think he's that great of a finisher.
To me, he's more of a guy who's going to go get the foul when he drives.
Okay.
Just because he's brute force. But like, remember before Kevin Durant came to Golden State, I felt like Draymond Green would be relied upon to hit some clutch threes. And he wasn't a good 3-point shooter by all means, but I felt like he used to at least be okay. To where some guys would kind of have to close out on him, but now he's just, I don't know. He should have taken the three. I mean, at the end of the day, but I think that next year, Golden State, as long as they're healthy, knock on wood, I cannot stand to see another year of basketball without Klay Thompson. I need headband Klay. If healthy, I'm projecting them to win 6 more games in the regular season than what they won. At least, maybe 7 more games. They're going to be a playoff team. It's going to be a low seed. It's going to be a 7. It's going to be an 8.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to make a run. They're definitely going to make a run. Draymond Green apparently is trying to get more involved in the offense. I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe it will work. Maybe they need to get him more involved just in case somebody else goes down. Maybe they need to work with him. Because obviously that wasn't good enough when Wiseman's down and Klay Thompson's out and they don't have Durant anymore. So, but definitely a fun weekend of basketball, fun couple of days. The only series that I really don't care to talk about because it means nothing to me, Philadelphia and Washington. I don't want to talk about it. Philadelphia just won by 25 points. They've been maintaining leads throughout the series. It's not whatsoever. Ben Simmons is playing extremely well, but again, he's playing Washington. They won by 7 points in game 1. It was a much closer game, but they've already put up 125 points in game 1, 120 points in game 2. It's just that's it. There's not really much to talk about. It's an over dominating performance. I feel like if the Bulls made the playoffs, I feel like they would have put up a better fight against Philadelphia. That's just personal opinion. Every other series has been fun so far, minus game 2 of the Milwaukee-Miami. That was
game 1 though was insane.
Wow.
Miami kind of like after game 1, so overtime game, Miami kind of almost made us eat our own words with they aren't the same they aren't the same Miami team as they were last year. And they put up a big fight. They barely lost when Jimmy Butler shot like 3 of 18 or something like that. At one point he was 3 of 18. Yeah. So when they barely lost, I was like, uh-oh, this could be very bad in the end. But come game 2, the Bucks just went up 30 immediately in the first. They pretty much held it throughout the whole game.
They shoot the ball. So defensively, they've been good since last year. Defensively, they've been a great. I mean, you have Giannis, you have Brook Lopez, who he's a 7-footer. I mean, how bad can you be? You have Chris Middleton, who's veteran. He's good. You have Drew Holiday this year. Drew Holiday, I always wish the Bulls ended up trading for him. Never happened. The Bucks are better than they were last year, and Miami is okay. I feel like Goran Dragic isn't as good as he was last year. We saw him pick it up tremendously. Kendrick Nunn, I don't know. He was good last year. He's not really doing much. Tyler Herro has been absent all season. Yeah, he has his big 20, maybe a 25-point scoring game, but he's not contributing to the game, I feel like. He's not doing much. Not saying he's bad. He's going to be great. He's going to have a great NBA career. But it's just this whole matchup seemed lopsided to begin with, minus game 1. Game 1, actually, I was like, okay, we are eating our words. Jimmy Butler has a bad game, and they still almost beat Milwaukee. They go into OT, but after this 30-point blowout, I don't see Miami winning a game. I seriously think it's got to be, if they do get close, and they might cover a spread here and there, but they're not going to win any games.
Maybe one, because it will be in Miami, but we'll definitely see over the next few days on that. One thing I don't like about the NBA schedule that like I'm used to with football, they play once a week, so it's fine. Baseball, they have like a set schedule. I don't get all these like random off days. What determines a team getting 2 days off in between games or 1 game off when there's no travel need? Or even like the Lakers, I get Arizona and LA are kind of close. They got 1 off day in between games 2 and 3.
I never understood how the playoff schedule works, and I never will understand because it's the same format. They literally have the same format.
Yeah, and like yesterday, they had both the Lakers and Clippers play at 10 p.m. for like people. It was like a 30-minute differential in time, but
Yeah, I was
either
watching both
way,
games. Yep.
Phoenix and LA game 1, a very good game. This is the series that I thought would be the best out of round 1, especially because the Lakers, they went in as the favorites just because people are betting. I want to point that out there, betting on the Lakers. Chris Paul got hurt in game 1. Looked like something happened with his shoulder.
Yeah.
And ever since then, he just has not looked the same.
You could tell. I was watching the game. They brought him in very, very limited time in the second half. And he came off a screen and when he passed the ball, it was like a push. He couldn't like thread the needle. It was like something that just seemed so awkward. They sat him pretty much the whole fourth quarter. In return, it ended up being actually a much closer game than expected because Cameron Payne came off the bench and was balling out. Cameron Payne used to be on the Bulls. He's been around the league. He ended up putting up 19 points in 33 minutes. Actually, when he logs long minutes, he can score. He can definitely score. He ended up with 7 assists, 2 blocks, a steal. Numbers were there. Only downside is he's not Chris Paul, and he's not going to produce night in and night out. And here's the other problem. It's not the fact that he has to produce, it's the fact that he has to outproduce Dennis Schroeder, who is unstoppable right now. They are exposing Phoenix's defense without Chris Paul. Even with Chris Paul, Schroeder was tearing up the Suns off the hesitation dribble. That first step off the dribble he's so fast. He reminds me of young playoff Rondo, except a way better scorer. A way better scorer. And that's the difference between the Lakers and the Suns right now. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I still don't know. I thought maybe the Lakers would end up winning in 4, not in 4, maybe 5, which it still could be the case if Chris Paul's shoulder is maybe as a torn labrum. I don't know something's not good there.
Mm-hmm.
And shoulder injuries don't just go away. Shoulder injuries, you harbor that injury generally for a couple of weeks, depending on what it is, to months. So maybe they can somehow keep the pain reduced and have him be the playmaker out there, because his basketball IQ is to the point where he can go a whole game without scoring and still be a difference maker. But if he's not on the court, Devin Booker started getting double teamed late in the game and they shut down Devin Booker. Now, Cameron Johnson hit a couple big threes. Some of the other guys were hitting some threes and getting inside. DeAndre Ayton was doing okay. But it just is not enough when it comes to the firepower of the Lakers. Chris Paul, if his shoulder doesn't get better, even if he tries to force it, I don't think they're going to win another game.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely tough. If it was his left shoulder, I don't think it would be as big of a problem. But it's his dominant shoulder. You saw him lose the ball just dribbling. He was dribbling and he was losing the ball because I don't think he was able to like push as much, and he's like trying to worry about it and just can't be himself. And also there's like in game 1, there's that weird shot because he normally does his fadeaway and it's like he's sitting in a chair. He's short, so he puts himself at an angle to where he can shoot over most people. It looked just awkward. He still made it, but it looked just awkward.
Everything that's what it is. Everything looked awkward. Yeah, there was a pass. I'm telling you, right off he came off a screen, and it was just like he had a force hit, like a chest pass, and it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen him do. Because normally he just comes off the screen. He'll hit somebody driving the lane, backdoor a pass, and it just wasn't there. And I think that was about the time they took him out. And I personally think you got to sit him a whole game. Don't let him practice. Don't let him lift. rest the shoulder and truly see, because we don't know what the injury is. They probably do. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there's a shoulder can be a micro tear, it can be a rotator cuff. You have so much going on in the shoulder that, especially when it's your dominant arm that's utilizing, you can literally go from no pain or limited pain to a 10 out of 10 in pain, just like that. And we're seeing it with Chris Paul. And I think they need to sit him one game at least. Don't force anything. Because what if he needs surgery and now you're pushing him as a late return into the next season? Because they're only getting better as a team. I think you sit him. You've got to sit him in game 3 as much as you don't want to. Let Cameron Payne ride this high right now because he's doing pretty well. But that's going to be your only opportunity in the series.
Yeah, and if he's not up to 100% and can't do what he normally does, then it's just going to be tough for he's actually going to be hurting the team more than he's helping it. And you do not want that at all. Like I said, tomorrow, or technically the day of listening to this podcast, is the next game of Phoenix and the Lakers. Weird, like I mentioned, they had one day in between, even though they are switching home courts. They're going back to LA. It's not looking good for Phoenix. I really wish this was a full healthy series. We aren't going to know the injury until afterwards. They just don't want to reveal it because, like, let's say he is playing on a super bad shoulder, then the Lakers, they already know he's hurting, but they don't know to like what extent.
Yeah.
And
think about the fan base. If they know Chris Paul's playing with a torn shoulder and it ends up being, okay, not only did they lose, but now they're running the risk of him being injured longer than it should have been. And I mean, granted, usually it's not that long of a return for a shoulder injury unless it's like really, really, really bad. At first, when I first saw the injury, I thought he dislocated it the way he fell on the floor and was holding his shoulder in place. I was like, oh man, it's a dislocation, but give him a few days off. But now it's seeming to be a tear somewhere, shoulder, bicep maybe. I don't think it's bicep. I think it's more shoulder. So I mean, depending on the severity of it, that's going to be the determination if they win another game in the series. And I just don't see it happening. Devin Booker's going to literally have to he's going to have to be able to go off with the double team. But after seeing the double team that they applied and the pressure in the fourth quarter, he couldn't do anything. He had to pass out every single time. And I mean, this is going to be the challenge of this young squad. Are they built for it?
Yeah. So that game's technically today. We just saw the Knicks beat Atlanta. They split the series 1-1. This is gonna be a good series. Trae Young silenced Madison Square Garden game 1. Game 2, a completely different game. I think Gallinari just wasn't shooting well. There's 2 guys who didn't shoot well for the Hawks, and it was, where's 3-pointers? Yeah, Bogdan. He went 2 of 13. Gallinari went 2 of 9, all from 3. Hurt them there. Trae Young put up 30 points, 7 assists. He was 4 of 7 from 3. Only 7 3-point attempts. I feel like that's a little low for him. But for the Knicks, you had Derrick Rose put up 26 points. What a beast. Love seeing that. RJ Barrett put up 13. Randall put up 13. Bullock put up 15. And Alec Burks put up another double-digit performance. Going back to Atlanta in the next game.
Yeah, I still have Atlanta in this series. Atlanta was winning the first half. I'm willing to bet all those 3-pointers that 3-point line that you just gave for all those guys, I'm sure all came from the second half because Atlanta had a pretty good lead in the first half when I was watching it. I still think overall Atlanta has a better team. That's just personal opinion. The Knicks are good. Knicks are good in the East. I like Julius Randle, Mr. Most Improved Player. I mean, the fact that he put up 13 points and they won by almost 10 says a lot. It says a lot about that team and Tibbs. So we'll see, though. I still like Atlanta. I like Atlanta. I think Trae Young is the future of the league. I think the big difference is going to be John Collins, Bogdanovich. Gallinari, you can afford to have Gallinari just have a bad game. But some of those other guys, Herter, obviously they have DeAndre Hunter. They have so much young talent. So much young talent. So much. I've been big on Atlanta for probably since the offseason. Just because of the season that they had last year. Trae Young balling out. John Collins was good. He's kind of having a down year compared to last year, but that's a fun series. That watching that game was like, or these past two games is literally playoff atmosphere. It's nuts. It's nuts. I thought they had a restriction in New York. Doesn't look like they do. It's a packed house. Derrick Rose is going off. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. When was the last time New York was good? Carmelo.
Yeah, so you have that series. Where's the bracket? Denver and we could talk about Brooklyn and Boston.
Brooklyn and Boston's gonna be a quick one. That's another one I should have said. We're gonna make it quick. Brooklyn proven that they are way overpowered, at least against a Boston team that's without Jaylen Brown, and all they have is Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, and company. And Marcus Smart isn't always balling out. He has great games. He's good defensively. But when it comes to that big three and company, it's going to be a sweep. This is another one of those, we just got to get it out of the way. I don't see this being a fun series whatsoever. I'm looking forward to the next series, Milwaukee and Brooklyn. Same thing with Philadelphia versus the winner of the Knicks and Atlanta. I think that'll be an okay series. Better than what we're seeing with Philadelphia and Washington, hands down.
Mm-hmm. We got Denver and Portland.
Yes.
That one's... I haven't watched any of that series. I don't know why. It might be because of the times they've played. It might be because other games are on. I have not paid attention to it at all.
Yeah. It's Portland won game one. Denver played... It was a very, I don't want to say it was a rough game. It wasn't a rough game by Denver, but Portland's shooting was great. Dame was good. Melo had a hell of a game. And I think Melo is going to be the difference maker. My expectation is Dame will score every game. At what rate? At what rate of efficiency is going to be a big factor. CJ McCollum's good. CJ McCollum's usually pretty efficient. He doesn't have to shoot as much as Dame. But it's going to be the supporting cast. If Melo can really come off the bench and support 18 to 20 points, I can see Portland giving Denver a tough time simply because Denver is going to be and will continue to be without Jamal Murray. And they're going to put all the weight on Nikola Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. Some of the other guys have stepped up, obviously, but that is the bulk of that team right there. Nikola Jokic is averaging 36, 12, and 3. That's great from him. That's great from one of the front runners for MVP. Dame is averaging 38, 3, 11 and a half. But Denver winning by 28 points or 20 points, whatever it was in the last game, has me thinking that really without Jamal Murray, it's still not really a contest. I mean, the fact that Michael Porter shot 38% from the field, but 50% from three. He hit the big shots. Aaron Gordon put up 19 points. You had some guys like Monte Morris in games where he's had to step up or start games because of injuries, balls out. He's good. So I like the Nuggets in this series as much as I would love to see Carmelo and Dame and, CJ McCollum, and this whole Portland team move forward finally. I just don't think this is the year, but I also think this could be a 6 or a 7 game series, hands down.
And then the other West series that we have is the Clippers and the Mavericks. 2-0 lead for the Dallas Mavericks. The Clippers, as we know, they tanked their seed so they would avoid the Lakers. They did it on purpose. And then they match up with Dallas. They did not want to face LA until at least the conference finals. They match up with Dallas. Luka, we all know last year, put up massive points. He put up the game winner in one of those games last year, and it was Kristaps even playing last year, or was he kind of like hurt a little bit?
He was hurt a lot last year. I don't even know if he played in the playoffs last year. Or he might have came back towards the end of the season because it was that all those months and then the bubble. But I mean, Luka did great last year. In this series right now, it's the simple fact that yes, Luka's doing what Luka does. He's been looked at as, oh, he might be overrated. And I was big on Luka. I'm pretty sure that was my MVP pick in the offseason. I was big on them. I'm big on the Mavs when healthy because Kristaps is a big MFer. That's a big dude right there. Not only defensively will he average a couple of blocks, but I saw him shoot a three in the last game, which I think was last night. I saw him hit a three from the logo. And when you see a guy who's 7'2" or 7'3" shooting threes from the logo, you can't do anything for that. You can't stop that. And that's why I like that duo specifically. Now, in terms of this series, I didn't expect them to jump out to a 2-0 series. I knew that they would compete, but that man, Tim Hardaway, is an X factor. That dude is a dog when it comes to offense. Defense, he's not bad either. Paul George played a great game yesterday, or in their last game.
Mm-hmm.
Kawhi's not going to have a bad game. You will not see a bad game from Kawhi. He's just too fundamentally sound offensively, defensively. I mean, he's literally in the face of, I saw him almost block Kristaps a time or two. But when you look at the box score for this game, you look at the fact that Kristaps put up 20 points on 66%. You have Tim Hardaway put up 28 points on 64%, 6 of 8 from downtown. Tim Hardaway, you don't need this bench. The bench actually is not bad from Dallas because of the simple fact that Brunson and Josh Richardson. I'm looking at the Clippers. The fact that Paul George goes for a double-double, 28 points, 12 rebounds, only 2 turnovers, and you look at Kawhi Leonard, 41 points, 2 steals, 4 assists, 6 boards, and nobody else does anything. That is the difference. Paul George, playoff P, who everybody hated or has hated the last few years in the playoffs as a choke artist, is not the root cause here and won't be when they get eliminated in the first round by the Dallas Mavericks. Fun series, though. That's a fun series because Kawhi Leonard is not easy to take out.
No. And the big two guys, they aren't necessarily the problems. It's going to come down to who they put around, which they're kind of like all these other big teams where they've tried getting these veterans who got either released from their contracts or they just want to play for a good team. It's just not working out. It's not meshing. It's not like Brooklyn getting Blake Griffin. They got Batum. Who he's okay. They've got Serge Ibaka. He's nothing like super special. They traded for Rondo, who they thought would help him out.
Yep.
Especially come playoff time, which Rondo probably is. It's just he doesn't have that impact like he did with the Celtics where he drops like 40 points.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, yeah, you go out and get these veteran guys to kind of be the glue pieces, the guys that generally step up in crunch time and playoffs. Nicholas Batum hasn't been good since, I mean, he had a couple good years with Charlotte, but he hasn't been good since he was with Portland. You have, as you mentioned, Ibaka. I like Ibaka, but if Ibaka does not have good games, who else is going to step up? I like the fact that they grabbed Ibaka. He won the championship with Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. They're a good duo. He's a block artist, or at least in his career. But I don't think the Clippers are the team that we, on paper originally, we were like, oh, this is LeBron's kryptonite. And as unfortunate as it sounds, I don't think LeBron has a kryptonite in this playoffs. Dallas. I think Dallas I love Dallas's team. I like where Dallas is at. And I've always been one of those guys where I'm like, man, Dallas, cannot really. I don't know why they're relying on Tim Hardaway the last few years because he would have good games, but then he would slump so hard. But I think now that he's put the time in the office, he's got the years in. He's playing with awesome players. He's playing under Mark Cuban as the owner, who's probably a super fun owner. He seems like there's just so much motivation there, and I can see this being a Dallas Lakers matchup in I don't think it would be in the next series, but at some point we're going to see Dallas go up against the Lakers.
Would
Actually, it
have
could be in the Western Conference Championship.
that's the only time they could meet up.
I would enjoy that series. I still think LeBron and the Lakers might be a little OP overpowered in that series, but every game I think we're gonna have more close games in that series than we will versus most of the series that the Lakers are gonna play. And I think Luka and that team could steal 2, 3 games from the Lakers.
I don't know, like out of those four teams from the top part of the bracket, I either want to see the Clippers or Dallas make it to the conference finals if the Lakers advance to that point.
Yeah.
Like I would not want to see Utah versus LeBron and the Lakers. Like I get Utah, what they're about. I just never think of them as like a fun team.
They are boring basketball to me. The only one that really shines any sort of light in that roster is Donovan Mitchell, the man who had one of the amazing playoff runs in the bubble last year. I mean, I think he had didn't he have like back-to-back 40-point games in one of those series? It might have been against Denver and Jamal Murray. I could be wrong, but I mean, the fact that they're I don't know. I guess it really depends on the series that they have against Memphis. It's not really to me. I think it's going to be a fun series to watch, Memphis and Utah, only because both teams are kind of awkward as far as like their balance goes. But the Lakers are the dominant as far as it goes, and I just don't want to see either of these two teams go up against the Lakers. It's got to be the Clippers. It's got to be you got to have Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis. On a card, because when it comes down to Utah or Memphis or any of these other teams in the West, I just don't see any team really stealing more than a game, and a game that it's going to take them to literally go 12 rounds with LeBron and the Lakers. So
next week we should have these matchups closed up. I'm not too sure. They don't have like the dates for any of these. It really just depends on when every series finishes up. Because I think last year or either the year prior, we've seen second round matchups begin when there's still first round matchups going on.
I remember that. Yeah, it's very weird how they do that. The whole playoff schedule is just awkward. It's odd. I get it. You want to keep the guys. You got to keep them moving. You don't want to give them too long of a rest. But it's just weird how it works that way. Matchups.
Next week, hopefully we see all these series finish up. There's probably going to be at least one or two that go 6 or 7 games. Majority of them will probably just end up being 5 games. We'll see a team take one of the games in the East. Right now, the only series that's split was New York and Atlanta in the West. We have seen a couple splits, but with Phoenix being hurt, Denver and Portland could go all the way, and then the Lakers and Dallas could probably go all the way. I don't really think Memphis, they lead, so it potentially could go for them. Depends when Donovan Mitchell comes back. Hopefully he plays next game. I think he was like a game time decision. He just couldn't play game 1. Now that they're down, should be in there.
Yeah, he's in this game right now. I got the game running. He's in there. He was a little upset, actually, that he had to sit in game 1 because he felt fine. Obviously, game 1 of series 1, you have home court advantage. You want to jump out ahead, but like it's precaution. He is your franchise and your franchise moving forward. So he's in though, and I think that is going to be the difference maker in this series. But if Memphis somehow takes the first 2 games in Utah, then they're making me eat my words, because I personally think that Memphis is a very weak team in the playoffs. I feel like they're one of the weaker teams in the playoffs, at least in the West, when it comes to the strength of the Western Conference.
Mm-hmm. What we've
So
been talking for around an hour. A lot of basketball talk. It will continue as these weeks go on in the playoffs. So if you guys did enjoy the podcast, make sure you subscribe, you download, follow us on social media at SROnlyPod. Follow my personal pages at the Healy6.
you can follow me. I'm iGoose with 4 O's. As always, do not ask why there's 4 O's in there. It's actually, that's what was available. Make sure you guys hit that download button. Stay interactive. We have a lot to talk about. Next week, we are going to continue talking about the NBA playoffs. There should be more awards listed. There's been a couple so far, but we're going to wait and talk about that as a whole as more awards come out. Hopefully some NFL news, OTAs. We'll talk about that as well. And then, of course, baseball. So make sure you guys tune in, hit that download button, and see you next week.